So at this time, I would like to call on Rob Cameron to come forward here. He's going to give us an update on the new Marshal service here, and I sure appreciate you taking the time today, Rob, to come out to our AGM here and tell us what's happening with the new Marshal service. Rob began his law enforcement career in 1987, just after graduation from college with a diploma in law and security administration. He began his policing adventure with the Ministry of Natural Resources in Ontario, and after enjoying about 2 years with the MNR, was accepted into the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in 1989. During his career as a Mountie, he was posted to 4 different provinces and numerous communities. During his career in the RCMP, Rob wore many hats, starting with general duty, detachment, policing, and moving into a variety of specialties, including drug enforcement, gang unit, federal policing, sections including Migrant Vessel Enforcement Team, Special 1, the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit, provincial operational support, including the Critical Incident Program, which contained the Emergency Response Team, Police Dog Service, Air Services, Provost, and the Operational Communications Center, among other groups. Rob retired from the RCMP as a member of Saskatchewan's F Division in January 2018. His last roles in F Division included being the Division Federal Criminal Operations Officer and the Provincial Critical Incident Command Coordinator. He left the force to take on the role of Executive Director of Policing with what was then the Ministry of Justice and later became the Ministry of Corrections, Policing and Public Safety. 2019, Rob was promoted to Assistant Deputy Minister of Policing, and he was appointed Commissioner of the Provincial Protective Services in 2022. In January of 2024, Rob became the first Chief Marshal for the Saskatchewan Marshal Service. Rob is a passionate hunter, recreational shooter, and outdoors enthusiast. His off time is often spent visiting his family's farm and helping with chores when he can. You will also find him often up in the Candle Lake area enjoying all that the great outdoors has to offer. Rob is married and has 2 daughters, 4 cats, and 2 blue heelers. Rob's presentation has been sponsored by Grain Millers Canada. Thank you very much to the Grain Millers for sponsoring that, and welcome, Rob.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Garner, for the introduction. Very pleased to be here today and have an opportunity to speak to you about the Saskatchewan Marshal Service and give you a bit of an update and a bit of information about what the Marshal Service is all about. Do I control the? I do? Okay. That looks very technical. Green is ahead? All right. There we go. So just to give you some background as to what the Marshal Service is and why it's important to Saskatchewan is it's a specialized provincial police service, and it's designed to do very specific things. So and that's a key part of this is it's a very specialized, looking at a focused and targeted type of policing, really focusing on those provincial priorities. Now, like any police service, and I see there's some RCMP members here in the crowd here, and I recognize Owen. Hi, Owen. Like any other police service, we have the same sort of purposes: detecting and disrupting and deterring criminal activity. It's certainly enforcing federal and provincial law. One of the key parts of this that came out of a bunch of different things, and there's a lot of conversation probably in this group here. There's a lot of conversation about people that are out on bail and breaching bail conditions, or there's people that are constantly rotating through the system. And then, of course, the James Smith tragedy really highlighted the need for this kind of work, but it's to really target and go after those high-risk, prolific, violent offenders that are out there, and also those individuals that are wanted on crime, so the people that are running from the justice system. One of the things that we're really going to focus on is gangs, illegal weapons, drugs, and then, as you can see, it's highlighted on the slide there, and I think this is probably important to everybody in this room, is those agricultural crimes such as cattle theft and more. So that includes things like metal theft, trespassing, and when I talk about trespassing, I'm talking about trespassing for purposes of criminal activity. And really then to specialize that, or to provide that specialized support to other law enforcement in the province. And that would be the RCMP in this case. You've got Owen that's doing a great job with the cattle theft issues here. And we would be able to augment and assist Owen with what he's doing. So we had some capacity there. But also it could be our city forces as well, like Saskatchewan. And if you've watched the media lately, you've seen some facts that they've got some pretty significant crime issues, Prince Albert or the RCMP in general. And that could also include our provincial protective services, which would be the folks like the conservation officers or the highway patrol and different groups like that. So really have a wide mandate there to kind of cover off and assist a lot of people in this province. But the key of all of that is to provide that enhanced policing presence in the province. And there's a special focus on the rural and remote areas. So for a long time, we've talked about issues with relating to response to rural crime and different issues like that. People might remember back in 2018, we created the provincial response or the protection and response team, which combined what's now known as PPS to be able to assist the RCMP in different responses. And so we're continuing to look down that path and really augment that presence, particularly in the areas where most of you would live. So that's sort of the mandate of the service. So some of the key parts of that in our mandate is that ability to respond to those emergent and urgent events wherever they happen. I already mentioned James Smith as a critical one, and not a lot of people know, or maybe they do, but when that event happened, the RCMP pulled out all the stops, put a bunch of people into that, and they did a great job. But they also needed help. And so Provincial Protective Services, for example, put 59 different resources in there, mostly made up of conservation officers and highway patrol officers that went to assist with the RCMP. And that's a pretty important point. We've always had a good a mechanism in this province to really assist one another with all these kinds of really bad things that happen. Another thing that we really look at it through our mandate is focusing on those hotspots. So recently, people will remember that we had ATM thefts that were going on. So people coming over the border from Alberta primarily and stealing ATMs and taking them back. Well, there's a hotspot crime area or a crime situation that the Marshal service would be able to assist, whether it be the RCMP or another police service, whoever's investigating, to provide those resources to do that. One of the things I always explain is if you're a police service and you have a particular crime issue in your area, but you also have to provide 24-hour, core policing duty function. And so you can't always cut loose people to do that special policing event. Well, the Marshal service can be deployed to assist that. So the police service may only have to put a small group of people out and then gets aided by the Marshal service to provide that extra capacity and support. And then the big one that a lot of people say this is the best part of it, is our function is to aid other law enforcement without a cost. So it doesn't go back to your rural municipality. It doesn't go back to your urban municipality. The police service doesn't get charged for our service, unless it was something extreme. Maybe in that context we might, but generally speaking, no, we don't charge any money for this. It's already been paid for, and we're there to provide that resourcing. Now, a couple things, and I'm going pretty quick through this because I only have a limited time with you today, but it's not a replacement for any police force of jurisdiction. So police force of jurisdiction for the province is the RCMP, obviously, Regina City Police, PA Police, whatever the case may be. We're not designed to replace that. We're designed to augment and enhance that, but also do our own proactive investigations in those crime types that I mentioned before. We're not designed to also provide the 911 core policing. So if you have an incident that happens in your area, you still call your 911 and you get your police force of jurisdiction to come out. But maybe after the fact, we will be used to assist that in that response, not unlike the PRT is used now. The other part, of course, is we can do our own proactive investigations. So we'll conduct investigations that we will look at certain crime elements or crime types and provide that service directly. What we will strive to do is do it as much as possible in conjunction with another police service. If If they want to be involved in an investigation that we're doing, they're absolutely going to be welcome to do that. And we'll approach them and do what we call deconfliction with that. And I already mentioned that it's not designed to be a cost recovery model, so we aren't charging anything more, so you don't pay for this service. So as ratepayers or taxpayers, you won't pay more for it. It's already been done. The money's already there. So what are the benefits? Well, the benefit is that enhanced presence and capacity throughout the province. More cops on the road, more boots on the ground, more ability to chase the bad guys and put those, take them off the street and get them into jails where they belong. I mean, this is really what we need to do. It acts as a force multiplier for the other police services. They're tapped. There's a lot of stuff going on, and they have to deal with that every day, and there's 24-hour, 365, there's always stuff going on. Is now they have an ability to leverage other resources that can help them with those kinds of investigations and to respond to those emergency or urgent calls. And then increase the focus and targeting of priorities of the province. And the priorities of the province really are the priorities of all police services. Gangs, drugs, illegal weapons, human trafficking is becoming a thing. The metal thefts, the cattle thefts, all these kinds of things that we can put more bodies to, more action to, and take a proactive approach instead of waiting for things to happen. We can really, working with somebody like Owen is going to be a big part of what we're doing. And we can focus on those that are doing these things before they actually commit these crimes. And then that enhanced intelligence sharing. And in my world, sharing information is critical to being successful. And there's been a lot of things happen. So the acronyms you'll see on the screen there: Criminal Intelligence Service Saskatchewan, the Warrant Intelligence Team, and other law enforcement. So as a result of the issues with James Smith, the Warrant Intelligence Team was created, and that allows us to take information through an intelligence network and share that information not only with law enforcement, but to share that information with also things like social services. So they can take people that are profiting from money that are wanted by the justice system, but are receiving checks from the government. They can cut that off and stop them from receiving that money, and that way they're not profiting from their crime. What I would mention is it doesn't affect, though, for example, a spouse or children. That's not the intent of this. It's that people, like the fellow that did the James Smith incident, was getting checks from the government, and that isn't acceptable. Now, just very quickly, I'll run through this just so you got an idea of what the organization looks like. So the Chief of Police, known as the Chief Marshal, we have a Deputy Chief Marshal, Superintendents, Inspectors, and Marshals are the equivalent to constables in essence. When we're all said and done, we'll have 70 officers. We'll have about 30 support staff, and support staff is things like the records management, procurement, logistics people. In fact, I've got some of the folks there. The fellow in the back there, he's actually our executive director for the operational support side. And Rick Davis there sitting is one of the directors. And they'll support the police activities as we go. Our first headquarters, I guess the budget is around $20 million when we're all said and done, and when we go operational in 2026. And the first district headquarters is going to be in Prince Albert. Now we are looking, right now we're studying where other field offices should go in the province. And so there's quite an elaborate process to that, looking at data from crime severity indexes, crime trends, calls for service with other police services, and a bunch of factors actually that will point out where we should be putting these offices as we expand throughout the province. The thing to look at is we want it to be able to impact the most areas that we can and be helpful to everybody as much as we can. So like I mentioned, we're expected to be operational in 2026, potentially sooner. And as part of the update, we're actually progressing quite well. Things are moving very quickly now. And so if you might have seen actually some of our positions that are being advertised, we're starting to hire staff. And in the first phase of recruitment, we're looking for experienced officers. And that's to build the capacity internally of the organization. The second phase will be looking for what's called new entries to us, recruits basically, and these will be fresh folks coming in and then becoming marshals. From the point of view of training, all of our marshals will be taking 10, so I'm talking about experienced marshals here now, or experienced police officers that come in, an additional 10-week training, basic training within the Marshal Service itself. So all those folks come in with the training that they got from a basic police academy and whatever they've had in their career, but also we put them through 10 weeks of additional training. A lot of that is hard skills, the tactical stuff, the driving, the law stuff, we revisit all that thing, but it's to make sure, because we have people that could be coming from all over the country as to become marshals. This will make sure that everybody's at the same level and knows all the things that's important for policing here in our province. Now, probably one of the most important parts of this is, how do we work with you as the Stock Growers Association? Well, I think, first of all, we have to recognize you are a very critical stakeholder in this. In fact, our mandate has, with the agricultural crimes and the cattle theft and things like that, that is specifically because of the group here. This is an issue that is important and seen by the government as being important, and so we're going to dedicate resources to that. And I think that's where we really kick off this relationship. What? Something I said? Okay, I'll yell a lot louder then. I think one of the things that is a big advantage here, and to get involved with organizations such as the Stock Growers, is really the opportunity to learn, to really learn from you, and what's the important issues, what's the trends you're seeing, where are the areas of concern. And certainly what we'll be doing is reaching out, and we already have, and I've been in contact with Chad, is to, oh, are we back on? Yeah, we are. Okay. So now I'll tone it down a bit. Is really about learning and engaging with the Stock Growers Association. Certainly, I think that shared information exchange can be very important, and I talked a bit about that before with regards to the intelligence, and everybody in here has some form of intelligence. They know, they see things, they know how these things are being done, and I think that's why it's so important that we connect. Now, a little bit, this is where I'm going to do a bit of a show and tell here for you, because I think I want to show you what you're going to see, what you're going to see in the field, and what you're going to see driving by your farms and ranches. So this is basically our normal crest here. So this is the logo you'll see. Logos you'll see on the uniforms. This will be on the shoulder flash. There's our badges. So if somebody comes up to you and says they're a marshal, and you ask to see it, that's what you should be seeing when they show you a badge. And then probably the best part of this is the vehicles. So there's one of our marked vehicles. So this is what you're going to see in your communities. This is what you're going to see going by your farms and ranches. These are the vehicles that should be stopping in and chatting with you. So there's our standard pickup. We've got a couple of them out. Well, we don't have marked ones out there yet, but we're getting them marked now. And there's the Tahoes, what they look like. And right now, all I'm doing is like a proud papa up here. So I'm just showing you pictures of my kids. But that maybe makes sense to people. But that brings me to questions. Certainly able to take questions. I had trouble with this one too.
Is it on now? I think so. Okay, so you had indicated on one of your slides there you have a $20 million budget. So where's that being carved out of?
It's not being carved out of anywhere. It's new money that's being brought forward by the government. Now, when it comes to the budget itself, the budget is given to us for the Marshals program.
Okay, it's coming from where?
Well, I don't know if I can even answer that question. That's something that would be more of a question you would have to ask maybe the minister or something like that, but because I can't really answer that. But I can tell you that's what
fair.
Our budget is.
Yeah. Okay, the other question I have too, will you be empowered to issue tickets?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have authority to write tickets under the Summary Offenses Act. We'll have the ability to write what's called a SOTI, a traffic ticket or something like that.
Right.
It would be one of our functions, and although it's an important function for traffic enforcement and whatnot, we also have a lot of mandate in there where we're really looking at that serious and high impact crime, but we do have that capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my last question is I'm just curious whether this is going to be a precursor to replacing the RCMP in the province, to have a provincial police force, and such as the discussions that they're having in Alberta right now. So.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll tell you at this point in time, no, it's not. There's nothing been communicated to me that this is any kind of form of replacing another police service, or whether it's the RCMP or any police service in the province. It's an addition to, it's an augmentation, an enhancement of policing presence, but not at this point in time. There's nothing to indicate it's to replace anything.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Henry McCarthy, Wawota. Now, last week we had a bit of a Dukes of Hazzard episode in our area, where there's been a ring coming around stealing vehicles, tools, fuel, and they're organized. And they ended up shooting one in Manitoba at Niverville. They had two cop cars collide and in the chase and wrecked them. So in our area, people would be very welcome to more police. Except for we see the resources being used. Last week we had an 80-year-old pulled over twice in one day. Once because he couldn't make it home, he had to stop for a pee. He had to blow. Then they stopped him later. He had to blow his thing, and we don't really have. And when you look at the young kids compared to when I was younger and I fought the law and the law won, drinking and driving isn't a huge issue. During COVID, they were running around checking, making sure there wasn't too many people in a house. You come through Regina, and there's a camera on every light thing, and people also feel like they're being targeted, being made the criminals. And, like we're dedicating resources to this, and our fish cops are getting sent out to domestic disputes and all this kind of stuff. So I think people want more, but they also want the results they're looking for. They don't want to be harassed every time they get pulled over if they do a rolling stop or things like this. So I just wondered if you could comment on that a little, if that's well, who like a lot of this stuff, like the cameras and stuff, that's revenue generation. Same with the blowing, right?
Yeah, and there's a few things in that question there. First of all, that obviously I'm assuming that was the RCMP that was stopping the folks there, and you're now we see the policy of having the sort of the mandatory blow into the roadside screening device. I can't speak to the RCMP's policies, but I can tell you what the Marshals' policies will look like, and what we'll be doing is our focus is going to be on that high level crime, that high risk, high impact crime that goes on. We're talking about gangs that are coming into areas. We're talking about people that are doing robberies. We're talking about people that are stealing the cattle. We're talking about people that are stealing the metal theft or doing the metal thefts. We're talking about, our focus is going to be on that high crime element. Yes, we have the capacity to do traffic enforcement, and if there was a bona fide public safety risk for something, if one of our marshals is driving down the road and sees something that is a bona fide risk, we absolutely would deal with that. But our focus isn't going to be regulatory enforcement. That's not. There's people that do that. Our focus is going to be more on that high level crime. That's what people want. I think that's what everybody in this room wants, is us to deal with that kind of stuff. And that's going to be our main focus.
Okay, thank you.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you talked about not taking away, like if we call 911, the police will still be deployed. A lot of us are from a very not population dense area, like from the south. Will your services improve response times? Because a lot of us, if we call 911, we're still waiting for that hour. Are you going to be in those locations where we're a less dense population? Like, can we expect support that way as well from your services?
Yeah, and that's a great question too, in the sense that, so we are limited. We have 70 resources, 70 cops, and that's including me. So obviously we have a limited number of resources that can go around the province, and our mandate includes the whole province. We will be focusing on going into areas. In fact, we were having a conversation this morning about how we could, particularly in this south west corner here, is how do we, how do we get involved there, and how do we show our presence in that area? And that's part of the reason why I'm here today, is to talk to folks that are in those areas and try and get connected and say, what do you see? How could we help in that area? And as we go on, and I'm in contact with SARM and SUMA and a variety, Cattlemen's Association as well, and things like that. The idea being here is to figure out how we can do that. And yes, we will be in those areas. We will come into those areas. Now, I can't tell you what that frequency will be or how we're going to do that yet. And of course, part of that is a combination of chatting with our RCMP that are in the area, and other police services where they may be enforcing in those particular jurisdictions, is look how we can collaborate, if you will, on doing that. So yes, we will come into those areas where we'll be making the trips in. And if a community has a concern or a specific issue, then hopefully, we can connect and you can let me know what those are, and we can send some resources to deal with that. But there's a lot of communities that have a lot of different issues, and what might be important. For example, I got a call from Craik the other day, and they were asking if we could send marshals there, and of course we can. And I thought it was going to be a traffic enforcement, frankly. And then no, it was abuse to animals was the concern. So, and then I think Don Ferguson, where's Don? Is he in this room? No? Oh, there you are. So that's another area where a partner where we may be working with somebody like Don's group to say how do we improve that. So as this is going on, and I talk to more and more communities and more community leaders, I'm finding out that the issues are as varied as they are the communities. So that's a long answer to your short question, but yes, we'll be coming.
Good morning. My question is, what is your relationship going to be with our current conservation officers? Or do you have that defined? They have experienced a lot of mission creep over the years to be pulled into policing. Is the Marshal Service going to be backfilling that so that they can focus on their core role?
That's an interesting question. How do I answer that? So interesting context is, of course, and it was in my the introduction, I actually was the commissioner for PPS, which looked after the conservation officers and the highway patrol and all those groups. I don't think I would frame it as backfilling. We're not going to backfill. Our role is to provide an enhanced policing function throughout the whole province in the context of what police services do. Now, does that mean we could assist the conservation officers? Absolutely, we can. And where this is going to be really something where you're going to see that is you get into hunting season, or you get into a situation where there's increased poaching, for example. Well, maybe they might need resources to help them out with that. And we can certainly do that. But there isn't a specific plan for us to alleviate the demand on them, per se, but we certainly can help them. And I guess we'll see how that fleshes out, depends how you want to say that, in the future as we go forward. But no, it's not to backfill them, per se. We're not a replacement for them. They have a very specialized core function, and our marshals don't have that training, or at least not at this point in time.
Oh, yep. Garner Diebold, a couple of questions. I think they're kind of tied together. Currently, would you be working like with livestock services here in the province on the cattle theft side of things, like on reported missing animals and that type of thing? Again, I think in my part of the world anyway, and I mean it varies across the province, but cattle theft isn't a huge part of it. I see, more vehicle theft, quad theft, fuel thefts, vandalism, those types of things, I guess, rather than the cattle theft side of things. But I don't know the statistics on it, I guess. And Jason Pollock, I think, is here from LSS, you know, and I guess maybe that's a question for him. What are the numbers on cattle theft right now? And, you know, how do you see yourself working with them, or, you know, just a question, I guess, on how it works?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. In the sense, yeah, I absolutely envision us working with the livestock services for sure. They are obviously a collector of data, and they understand that business. And when it's specific to the cattle theft, absolutely a natural connection needs to be made there. I hear what you're saying, though, with all the other things that are going on, and that's, you know, that's as big a problem as any other problem is. And you have these traveling, you know, groups of criminals and whatnot. They're coming into rural areas, and they do this, and it seems to be all over the province. And one of our roles is to enhance that policing presence, and so there's more cops there to detect and deter that crime. But then if we also target those people that are doing that kind of work, and then get them, you know, make sure we can bring them to justice, make them accountable for that stuff. And so that's the bigger plan here. But absolutely, you know, the stock growers, the cattlemen, the livestock services, all of those groups, I think they're super critical to us meeting our objective. And that's just one part of our objective. And there's a whole lot more there. So I talked about cattle thefts, but I'd also mention metal thefts. We also talk about the break-and-enters, the trespassing, all those different kinds of things that can happen, which everybody in this room has probably some kind of information they could offer on that, or has some knowledge of the things that are going on, or says, hey, we're seeing a weird, you know, there's a bunch of people that are in this area, and we don't know who they are. They're not from here. What are they doing? That's all very helpful. And if you have information about that, I would always encourage you to report that to your local RCMP, because they're your police force of jurisdiction. But when we're operational, if there's marshals available too, then tell us too, and we'll work together with the RCMP to make that happen. It's really critical, and I think this is an important part of this message, is this isn't about replacing the RCMP, it isn't about replacing anybody, it's about enhancing and working more collaboratively and giving the RCMP more resources, both from the RCMP point of view, but also the Marshal Service being able to be there to support them, and a bunch of other law enforcement agencies too. So I think it's that really big macro picture of things, and how we work together because I'm tired of these guys too. You know, I have my relatives, their gas is getting stolen all the time from slip tanks, and they have people coming onto the property and stealing things out of the Quonsets and things like that. Like, I know we all are experiencing the same thing. So I want to do something to stop that, and that's one of the things. And I'm going to work with partners like Owen, you know, the RCMP, very big and critical part. You know, my bias shows a bit. I was 29 years in the RCMP, so I still have a red surge blood that comes out. But at the same time, what we're doing here is going to be impactful to reducing and mitigating that crime in the province. Great question.
Sure. I'm in an area, my name is Brad Howe, I'm from over by Empress or Leader. The sharing of intelligence across interprovincial borders, I think, is important. We find instances where the game warden told me to come to my place because I live in between two rivers. They're not allowed to come across the border into Alberta to be able to enter into my place. So same thing, if you steal an ATM at Burstall, you make it across the border to Alberta. Those guys, it seems that they're pretty well, the border's like going Canada to US, and I can't see how that can be. So again, I'm glad to hear some collaboration, hopefully, with your partners in other provinces.
Yeah, I hear you. And you know what? I can tell you that in the next few days here, we're going to be meeting with Alberta to talk about how we could go back and forth and what that looks like. Now, the Mounties, the RCMP has that, it's built into their act, their federal force, they can do that seamlessly. But you're right, those other components, and we've had one-offs where we can go back and forth, and we have special authorities that are in appointments that allow us to do that. But we're looking at a bigger solution for that. The issues in Saskatchewan and the issues in Alberta are often linked and interconnected, and they, particularly around the borderline. And so we need to look at how to do that. So we are meeting with Alberta. You know, Curtis Zablocki, I don't know if people remember him, he used to be the CO here in the division. We'll be meeting with him and then his team over in Alberta to talk about how that looks.
Hi, Gord Kozrowski from Gull Lake. My question is, who directs you guys? Like, to whom do you report, and who tasks you, You mentioned investigations. Who tasks you with investigations?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So first thing I'll explain is there's legislation. There's the Police Act that controls. It oversees every police service for the most part, except for the RCMP, and there's a reason for that. But that act is what it's done is compartmentalized the authorities over the Marshal Service. There's only 2 jurisdictions that do that. There's one in Saskatchewan, and the other one is Ontario with the Ontario Provincial Police. And what it does, basically, operationally, I'm completely independent. So who directs, your question was who directs investigations? That's me. I direct the investigations. Government doesn't direct those things. What government does is gives me strategy. They give me their priorities. And like they do with the RCMP. So under the RCMP contract, the PPSA, the Minister of Corrections, Police and Public Safety provides the RCMP its priorities and its direction each year. And then it goes in a letter and it goes to the CO of the division. It's similar for me. So I'll get my strategy, my provincial priorities. So for example, and I used this example before, is let's say the theft of widgets is a big issue. So the government might say, we want the marshals to focus on stopping the theft of widgets. That's the what. The how is for me to figure out. And it has to be compartmentalized like that. It has to be separate like that. Because I think folks in this room want their police services to be independent. And so they've created that in legislation, and they created it by matter of practice. So that's the answer to the question.
Great. You mentioned chatting with local RCMP. Are we talking about formal liaison to avoid duplication of effort?
Yeah, and so when we get into that, and that's a common thought of people is, how do we make sure we don't step on each other's toes, for lack of a better term? Well, we do this already. We do this across the board. We do it, and I was posted at one point, I was posted in O Division, Ontario, where we were the federal police service only. We didn't have a jurisdiction per se. And one of the issues there is working with other police services to make sure we don't have, first of all, interrupt each other's investigations and make sure that we don't get into a situation that's dangerous. So that's done through deconfliction processes. And so as chief, I'll meet with the RCMP executive management. We'll set up a committee or a group that will work with other police services. So if we were going to go into, say, come into Swift Current here to do an operation or do some investigation, we would connect with the Criminal Operations Office out of Regina, talk to them, let them know this is what we're doing, and then probably have our local inspector or something to that level come in and speak to the detachment here in Swift Current and say, okay, this is what we're doing. First question might be, hey, do you want in? No, we can't do that right now, or we don't have the resources, whatever the case may be. Okay, fine, but at least you know what we're doing. And that way we're not running into each other, and we don't put our members on either side into a dangerous position.
Last thing is, how's the RCMP response been? And I'll leave that to you.
Well, so I think the RCMP's response from the commanding officer at first was lukewarm at best. I think we're growing on them, so to speak. There are some folks that aren't happy with the marshals being created. It is what it is. I mean, my job is not to be the politician. I'm not a politician. I'm a cop. I'm a chief. My job is to run that service. That's my focus. I let them do the political stuff off the side, and I don't get involved in that.
It just means that they'd be less likely to call you to backfill is what I'm guessing.
No, I don't think that's going to be a problem, actually, because in actual fact, as we build the service, we're getting great response. So if you take it out of the political realm and the operational side, yeah, we're getting great response. In fact, we've done a few things already with the RCMP at the national level to get set up and to look at things like CPIC and training and firearms stuff and all these kinds of neat things that we're doing. So that relationship is really strong. I mean, like I say, there's always some politics with things, and we'll let politicians do politician stuff, and then I'll concentrate on doing police work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, folks, and it was a great pleasure to come up here, and I'd look to do it again sometime.